Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would do something that has been a really popular segment I haven't done in a little while, and it's my client lesson updates. And what I do with these is that I discuss with my various clients things that I've learned over the time that I can maybe pass on to a lot of you, that I can pass on to build a lot of you for your personal use, as well as a lot of you out there who are trainers and coaches. And at this time, I technically have 21 clients. Yes, I filled up those slots that I had, and one other came on, and he's starting later this week, so I'm rotating him into this month. Other people are already asking a little bit, but I have 21 clients at this point right now. So, some of the stuff that I've noticed with them, because as I said before, I like to create sometimes a spirit of competition among my clients. So, my clients get added to my private friends list. And again, a couple of my clients have come public a little bit, and if anyone thinks that they don't get to see the other people's lifts, well, they'll tell you that they do. So it's not like trolling or lying or anything else that I have the number of clients that I do, even though people will try to claim that. I'm sorry. Even people who admitted their clients will tell you, yeah, he does seem to have that many clients. Deal with it. Move on. Move on with your life. So, over to the point. One of the problems I have when I do that is not really a problem. It's the problem that we generally run into with our supplemental lifts. And that's, we know that performance and the strength that you have on your supplemental lifts is tied to your 1 rep maxes. Why? Because it induces hypertrophy. In other words, if your closed grip bench press 10 rep sets get stronger, like let's say you've been able to do 185 for sets of 10 on the closed grip bench press. If you can take that up to 195 for sets of 10, what usually happens? Well, your triceps and pecs and anterior deltoids have generally grown, and it's going to carry over to all of your pressing strength. Your maxes are going to go up. Now, people will say, well, what do you mean your max is? Most of my lifters are on conjugate. All right? Out of 21 clients, I only have 4 who are not on conjugate. 4. So I have 17 people on the conjugate method. And that's not counting some guys who are former clients who still pay me a very small amount just to send them programming once a month, but I don't answer their questions. We don't Skype. I don't help them with anything but hand them their programming, look at their max lifts. It's not even counting guys like that because they're going to be on conjugate still. So their max lifts go up. Same thing with a good morning. I've kind of given my guys strength standards on the good morning. And I've shown them that, look, these are what my other guys squat, because they see some of the guys squats. I mean, like one of my guys who I displayed before, him doing the sets of 10 with 225, he's got a 455 like straight up paused box squat. He can squat 475 right now. We're going to get him to a 500 squat this year. Okay. We're bulking him up. He weighs 167, and we're going to take him up to 180. And at 180, he's going to squat 500 plus. He's going to deadlift probably 585 at that point, easily, at 180. So I've displayed some of his stuff. Well, he's up to doing 245 for sets of 10. And that's kind of a standard that I've given a lot of my lifters is, hey, if you want to work towards a 500 squat, we need to see 225 for sets of 10 on the good morning. It's going to be extremely useful. Well, the problem we do run into with all of these lifts, as you can imagine, when we give these standards, guys forget why we want those numbers. Why do we want those numbers? Because if you can correctly do them, we're going to build the posterior chain to the point, and all the muscles responsible for hip hinging, we're going to build them to the point to where you can handle that aspect of your squat. It's a hypertrophy thing. It's not because I can max at my 10 rep max on an all-out with grindy form. It's can I do it correctly and strictly. So one of the issues I then run into is that I have one guy, really good client actually, but he's coming from a place of being quite a bit weaker than some of these other guys, and he's made enormous strides. He's put well over 100 pounds on things like his squat and his deadlift. But right now, I'm trying to do kilos to pounds back and forth in my head. I want to say in pounds, his deadlift is just over 440, 440 to 450. His box squat, right around that 365 mark. So he's trying to push the good mornings. He's trying to push the good mornings, which, by the way, he's a stronger overhead presser than anything else because he cares about his press a lot. This guy's trying to get to a 2 plate per side overhead press and never reach a 200-pound body weight. He's not trying to even be 200 pounds. He's trying to stay well under that. So he's, again, trying to chase those numbers. Well, the problem I run into is he's doing kilos and he builds up. Well, I've got like 95 kilos on the bar now doing sets of 10, and then they're sloppy. And what happens? Because he doesn't have the hip extensor strength to push them all the way back, he starts rounding his low back so that he can keep his pelvis rolled under so he doesn't have to use as much hamstring. So then we're back over to just cheating the weight up. Instead of doing a hip hinge, he's rounding his back, trying to reach the range of motion. And I had to tell him, no, let's reel it back in. And he's reeled all the way back down to 90 kilos. And we're still seeing almost a bit of that back rounding. So the thing that we need to remember when we are chasing, hey, if we can do this for 10, our lifts will go up by this much. So whether it's a close grip bench, a good morning, a glute ham raise, all these different exercises that we will use as performance metrics, we're looking at the hypertrophy side of them, which means they need to be strict and controlled. Okay? They need to be strict and controlled. I mean, just like I said for a lot of my guys of tell them, look, we want to get you to, a 225 for 10 close grip bench press if you want to catch these other lifters I have, okay, on your pressing strength, right? We need to hit that strength standard. But that doesn't mean bouncing, flopping, failing to lock out. That means doing these lifts correctly. So with the good morning, that means we need the hip extensor muscles and, of course, the erectors and everything to be strong enough. But in the case of someone like my other lifter, his deadlift is stronger than his squatting. His lower back is stronger than the rest of his posterior chain. So in his case, he'll roll the low back trying to reach the strength standard and not actually push the hips back and hinge correctly. Well, when we start doing stuff like that just to move the weight, we've lost the purpose. We've lost the purpose. And we have to reel it back in. So what I have to always remind my lifters of is that why do we do these 3x10s, these 4x15s, these 5x20s, these other things that we do to build our main lifts? We do them for hypertrophy. And it's not the weight on the bar. On our maxes, we don't care. Like, I don't care if form degrades if you can safely hit that max. Okay? We do what we have to do to get that weight up. Because of 1 rep max, we use whatever compensatory strength we have. That's different. We are chasing performance there. When we are dealing with supplemental lifts, their performance is a side product of the hypertrophy. Right? Even though we see the performance of there's our metric, that is what we're aiming for, we are doing so in the context of if I can use the muscles correctly to move that through the full range of motion for those number of reps, I will probably have induced enough hypertrophy in these muscles to carry over to what I want on this lift. We have to use good form. We have to be strict. We have to think in those terms with these movements. We have to, or else it defeats the purpose. And so what will happen with your lifters, if you're not careful, they will start to treat those like a competition lift. Let's do whatever leverage is or whatever we have to do to get them there. Skip the lockouts, bounce off the chest, right? Roll into weird positions so that our weak hamstrings don't get hit as hard on a good morning, right? They'll do these things. And those are just a couple of lifts. I mean, I could carry this over to overhead pressing, right? We could look at a lot of different lifts and look at the same sort of problems that we run into. But what we're dealing with is always the same thing. You always have to remind your lifters, why do we do these 10s, these 15s, these 20s? Why do we do them? We do them to build muscle. So that means that we need to be doing them in the hardest way possible. We need to be doing them in a way that puts the most tension on the muscles we are trying to work. And if we can maintain that range of motion and that strict form and hit those numbers, we'll see the desired result. But if we just get those numbers through any way that we can, just getting it up is getting it up, we no longer have a valid comparison to our other lifters. So all of a sudden what's going to happen is that on your good morning, if you're not doing it correctly and you're taking your weak hamstrings out, right? And in this case, this lifter needs stronger hamstrings. and then all of a sudden he does catch and manage to hit the 225 or 10, he's still going to be wondering why he only squats 400. Why is he only deadlifting 500? These other guys hitting this are crushing him. Because they're using the correct muscles. The same thing with my guys who are benching, or they're using a close grip press, right? We do a lot of volume. A lot of my guys do a lot of volume on either the close grip or the floor press, depending on their needs. All of a sudden, they get to their standard. They're taking that close grip bench, and they're coming 3 inches short of the lockout, and they're bouncing it off their chest, and they get to their 225 or 10, and then they wonder why the other guy is still out benching them. Because you're not doing the same exercise. You're just getting the 225 up in any way that you're just counting reps. Those were 0 reps. You didn't do a single rep. You're not at 225 for 10 on the stricter version of this exercise that we need to build the muscle. So we always have to remember supplemental lifts are there to build muscle. The performance is not the goal. The performance is our metric by which we judge how effective it has been for building hypertrophy. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.